What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. I guess technically a mini after the buzzer. I want to talk about a game that I just watched. I've been having a great day up to this point. I went ahead and hooped for a little bit, grabbed some food, and then sat down to watch my Oklahoma City Thunder face off against the Dallas Mavericks in both teams' first game post-trade deadline. Unfortunately for me, the Thunder got destroyed. I think they ended up losing by 35 points, got absolutely annihilated, just weren't really locked in. This is the third, mid-afternoon game the Thunder have played this season, and in all three of them, one against Denver, one against Detroit, and now this one, they've just fallen really flat. Meanwhile, for Dallas, they were locked in, they were high energy, they looked amazing, and like I said, first game for them post-trade deadline, so it was the debut of the two big names they picked up at the deadline, and they both fit in seamlessly in this game, two of the biggest contributors from this first moment they stepped out there on the court. Dallas was one of the more active teams at the trade deadline. A lot of people said that they were one of the biggest winners of it, and it made sense. They went out there and added Daniel Gafford for Richaun Holmes and a pick, as well as PJ Washington, trading away Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a draft pick as well. It was very clear that they had the goal going into the deadline of improving their front court, which makes a lot of sense. The backcourt is Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. You're perfectly fine there. The problem is finding consistent play on the rest of the roster, and it's been a pretty big struggle for them, it feels like, over the last few years to find that consistent front court play. They had Kristaps Porzingis at one point, but ever since he's been gone, they've just kind of had a revolving door of guys in that area, like a Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber have been around for a while, but neither one of them is very consistent. They've both dealt with a lot of injuries as well. They tried to bolster the center spot in particular in this offseason by adding Richaun Holmes, who hasn't been very good for the past few years and wasn't very good in Dallas before being traded. They did draft Derek Lively, who's been great so far this season. He slotted into the starting big spot almost immediately and clicked with Luka Doncic. Their chemistry is fantastic, gives him an athletic, rim-rolling big who can defend as well. He can shot block. He just alters shots left and right. He's really good. He's having a phenomenal rookie season, probably is going to end up on an all-rookie team, and he's very deserving. Been one of the biggest impactful pieces for the Mavericks so far this season. But the problem is when Lively hasn't been on the court, they've struggled. They really miss his, athleticism, his defense, because the rest of the bigs are pretty unreliable, especially because Grant Williams, who is supposed to shore up this front court as well, specifically on that defensive end, he was supposed to be a defender that could go ahead and knock down those corner threes that Luka generates at a high volume, didn't really do either of those things at a high level. The three-point shot was really hit or miss, not great at attacking closeouts, and the defense was way below what they needed from him. When they brought him in, they're hoping he could be one of the linchpins for them on that end, and instead he was kind of a turnstile for a lot of his Dallas tenure. This lack of impactful front court play has been one of the biggest reasons why the Mavericks have spent a majority of the season hovering right around that play-in race, but at the deadline, they added a couple of guys that seem to fit their holes to a T. Daniel Gafford is a big who can go out there and rim run, grab offensive boards, which is another one of their big weaknesses. They're one of the worst offensive rebounding teams in the entire league going into this deadline. He can also protect down low, block some shots, and gives them a veteran center to actually soak up some of the minutes when Derek Lively isn't in the game. Finally, they're going to have one of those two guys out there who both fit exactly what this team needs. And then they had a floor spacer at the 4 in PJ Washington, who I trust more than Grant Williams. He has the ability to attack closeouts, make plays for other guys off the bounce. It was an ideal deadline if you ask me. They didn't make insane splashes. They didn't go out there and add another all-star next to Luke and Kyrie, but it felt like they added two really critical role players who can do exactly what they need them to, and in the first game as a group, they were amazing. Again, they destroyed the Thunder by 30-plus points, a team that's been fantastic all season. Daniel Gafford in his debut went out there and dropped 19 points, 9 boards, and a block in 17 minutes on 7 of 11 shooting coming off the bench. He was immensely impactful. He was catching lobs, fighting on the offensive glass, bolstering them on that end in a huge way. Half his rebounds were offensive boards, disrupting the Thunder around the rim, doing a lot of things, again, that Lively has done all season. But now when he goes to the bench, they've still got a guy that can do that at a high level. It's way more important than maybe one would imagine. And his chemistry with Luka was evident from the first quarter. He caught an oop on his first bucket from Luka, connected with him for 2 in the game, had a couple of dunks in transition, just running the court. He had a putback layup, again, getting on that offensive glass. He just gives Dallas another dimension at the big spot with that offensive rebounding and his ability to go ahead and body up in the paint. A really smart defender down there too. And this is only the beginning. He and Luka are going to build a lot of chemistry over time. And as they get more and more acclimated to each other, they're going to be terrifying as a big end guard duo. The pick and roll potential between those two is ridiculous. You give Luka a rim running big and things are going to get really scary for the opposing team. He's so good at forcing teams to send over two guys. The second he gets downhill, he's so good at making tough shots, is great as a playmaker. You've got to send another body over a lot of the time, and the second the big rotates over or gets up in the air, Luka is so good at finding the big with a wraparound pass on the roll or a bounce pass or just hitting him on the lob. He's just an amazing playmaker, and that's also part of the appeal of these acquisitions, is that not only is Luka going to make these guys better, because if you thought they were good already, wait till you see them for a while with Luka Doncic, who is a special player and elevates everybody around him, but they're going to make Luka look better as well, because they're opening up the court for him with PJ Washington being a shooter, another guy that opposing defenses have to consistently worry about, with Daniel Gafford as that lob threat, as someone in the offensive glass who can get Luka more opportunities to put the ball in the bucket, which he's really, really good at. If you haven't noticed, it's going to elevate everything. They're going to elevate each other's games to new heights. Luka in this one had a typical Luka game, 32 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists on 9 of 14 shooting, and a lot of that was just because we couldn't send too much pressure at him, or he was going to either find like Gafford on a lob or hit him on the roll. He was going to kick it out to PJ, who's going to score credit play for somebody else, and of course there's a lot of other very talented players in Dallas as well, but you could just tell that things were really free-flowing with him out there. He was taking advantage of the new options that he had at his disposal. PJ Washington wasn't as loudly dominant as Gafford was, but he too had a really good game. 24 and a half minutes, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, and a steal on 6 of 10 shooting, which is phenomenal production for a guy coming off the bench. That's really all you need from him. He didn't really hit his threes, just 1 of 4, but I'm not too concerned about that. I think they'll come along. Held up pretty well defensively too, and I think having bigs alongside him like Lively and Gafford will help him be better defensively. He's never been a great defender, but I do think this could be a chance for him to play some of the better defense that we've seen from him. Kyrie also played well, 25.6 rebounds, 8 assists. Hardaway had 10 points. It was just a fantastic showing from the new look Mavericks. Now, this is only one game. I'm not going to draw conclusions and say they're going to win the West or anything crazy like that, but it does seem like these additions are going to be huge for them. I mean, in my trade deadline video before even seeing them play, I declared them one of the biggest winners of the deadline, and I mean it. They can really rise up the standings quickly if they continue this pace. If they look as good as they did in this game and some other ones, the Mavericks quickly look like one of the scarier teams that you could potentially have to face coming out of that play-in tournament. If I'm a top seed with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving out there, especially Luka, who is one of the biggest playoff risers in NBA history, with a better supporting cast now, better defense, lob threats in Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, a shooter in PJ Washington, like all that talent around him, I don't necessarily want to see this Dallas Mavericks team. I wouldn't call them championship contenders, but I do think they've got a chance to make a run if they really figure things out, and at the very moment, they're looking better than they have for a little while now. It's pretty imperative for the Mavericks that these moves do end up working out. They don't have a lot of assets. They didn't have many going into the deadline, and they had to give up a first-round pick in the PJ Washington trade, as well as sending a pick swap in the future over to Oklahoma City to get them to give you a first-round pick to even put in the Gafford trade. They were going on loans to get first-round picks. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of capital left. They've got to go ahead and stick with what they've got. And hey, in this first game, it looked amazing. Just hope for their sake that it continues to be that way. And they've got a pretty good chance to go on a run. The rest of the season, the Mavericks have one of the easiest remaining schedules in the entire NBA. Tankathon.com ranks them with the 5th easiest schedule for the rest of the season. That's huge for them. They're finally getting healthy. They've got these new guys in. They look great. Luka's playing some of the best basketball, probably the best basketball of his entire career. I think there's a real chance they could go on a run and push their way up the standings. And if they do, Luka might push his way into the MVP conversation. This is, I know, been a topic on NBA Twitter, and I think outside of that as well, but me personally, I've seen a lot of people talking about why isn't Luka one of the top MVP candidates, because he's doing some pretty insane stuff this season, and really I think the only reason why he's not up there is because the Mavericks right now are an 8 seed. If they were a top 4 seed, it would be pretty hard to deny that Luka's one of the top candidates, and I think with this easy schedule they've got coming up, the new additions that make them a lot better, and the fact that Luka's just unstoppable right now, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season he finishes top 3 in MVP voting or pushes his way into that top 2. Hell, if the Mavericks find a way to get home court advantage, I think he's got a pretty good argument for being the MVP winner outright, which is probably even overdue at this point. I mean, Luka has consistently been playing at an MVP level. It's just a matter of getting the team's success to actually get him the MVP consideration that he deserves. I think the Mavericks have a chance to do so, at least if this first game that they played with the new people in town is any indication. I'm excited to see how Dallas plays the rest of this season, even even though it was my favorite team getting destroyed, it was really impressive to watch Dallas operate, how Luka Doncic can manipulate the defense, and how the new help really showed out in their first game. Let me know what you thought about the Dallas Mavericks deadline. What do you think about this first game if you watched it? And how far do you think the Mavericks could go? Could they be a sneaky team to make a deep playoff run? Do you think it's a little bit too early? And do you think the success that they showed in this game will carry over for the rest of the season? I appreciate you all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.